pure guard. Has to, despite his unconventional size for the position.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to remind anyone, but Tommy Jackson's a pretty solidly built big guy, and Jonathan towers over Tommy. Let's bring in Chris Fowler and company back at our ESPN studios. Chris.
Well, we want to ask Mike Lombardi about the move that Ted Marchibroda announced, moving Jonathan Ogden from tackle to guard. That's a lot easier move than going guard outside. He doesn't have the prototype guard body. The 6'8", the long arms, you'd think of a tackle having that kind of a build, yet you say it's really an advantage in the modern NFL.
Well, I think with all the four-man fronts, he's going to play against a lot of power players. His long arms certainly giving him an advantage to play inside. He's already played in a left-handed stance, which will be very comfortable for him. As Mel said, he can pull and move around. I think it'll be a natural transition for him. The Ravens, excuse me, the Ravens
You're allowed to slip.
Yeah, the Ravens have Tony Jones, who's been a very good player for them. Although he's got some elbow problems, he wasn't able to get operated on last year, he certainly has been a very good player for them. So putting him next to Tony Jones, Steve Everett, this gives him a pretty good line. Again, the key in the NFL is to keep the pocket firm so the quarterback can step up and throw. And if you're good inside and firm inside, you can do that.
But the bottom line is it's not a change that you make frivolously. You make it because it makes sense with the personnel that Baltimore has in the offensive line.
Yeah, exactly. They don't want to play him over at right tackle. That would be an adjustment. Orlando Brown's a very good player. Right guard, Wally Williams played last year. Steve Everett, the first-round pick. So they've got the makings of a very good offensive line. The year we went 12-6, the offensive line led the league in sacks allowed. So it's been a good line. Unfortunately, last year it didn't play so well. That's why I'm here with you.
Yeah, so you ask him to make a physical adjustment, maybe some bit of a mental adjustment as well, but as we heard earlier, Ogden did score very well on the Wonderlic test. One thing, though, if you're agent, you darn well better pay him tackle money and not guard money.
Well, he's going to get paid by the slot that he was picked in at the 4th pick in the draft, and then at that point, he's in such a high neighborhood that, and certainly being close to D.C., he's going to pay a lot of taxes.
All right, we're going to come back as we wind things down. Round number 7, concluding as we'll take you back to New York and Connecticut and Florida and everywhere else after this.
4, 3, 2, 1, break.
It's not professional pressure cleaning. It's the amazing new Euroblaster. That's right, Euroblaster. Go from this to this to this at the turn of a dial. This V-shaped cleaning jet washes your car easier than ever. And the large shampoo chamber mixes soap and water to blast that dirt away. Turn this dial for a clear water rinse. Even add liquid wax to give your car a professional shine. Change to this narrow, strong jet to blast wheels and hubcaps clean. Dial in this down angle spray and clear loose grass and debris from sidewalks. Blast your patio clean as a whistle. Turn to the large straight jet and those glass doors are done in seconds. You can even clean out those clogged up gutters. Euroblaster blasts everything clean, and it's only $19.95. Order yours now.
Have your credit card ready and call toll-free 1-800-714-1616 or send check or money order for $19.95 plus $4.95 shipping and handling to the address on your screen. Call now 1-800-714-1616.
How much NBA action can you pack into 1/2 hour? How much can you handle? NBA Tonight, the ultimate half-hour wrap-up of the day that was in the NBA. Tuesday through Saturday at midnight, only on ESPN2.
Down to our final 14 selections of this draft, so many of the war rooms are thinking free agents now, and some of the coordinators are feeling pretty good because their side of the ball was helped. For example, Dallas, their first 2 players were defensive. Their defensive coordinator, Dave Campo, is standing by with our Chris Myers. Chris?
Hi, thanks very much, Mike. After completing his first full season, heading into his second season as defensive coordinator, Dave, you talked about the revolving door here because of the success of the Cowboys and how people like Robert Jones move on, Russell Maryland, and that's something that you have to deal with. Are you satisfied with what you've done in this draft to address that area of this team?
Well, I think when you throw in the free agents that we signed, Chris, I feel real good. Getting a player of Fred Strickland's caliber from Green Bay and Broderick Thomas from Minnesota, those are guys that are good, solid players. Now what we tried to do was address some areas of needs with Kavika Pittman, Randall Godfrey, guys that are guys that have a chance to play fairly early for us.
And you said speed important. How realistic is it to expect somebody like Pittman or Godfrey? How much are you expecting them to play?
Well, Pittman, of course, is going to be a little bit raw coming from McNeese State, but he's a guy that has a real big upside, and we would hope that he might be able to get into maybe 20%, 25% in the rotation in the defensive line. Godfrey now we feel is going to compete with Broderick Thomas. It's the Sam linebacker position, and how much playing time he gets will depend on how well he does when he gets in here.
You told me at breakfast this morning Shante Carver is making progress, but how pivotal a year is this for him, a former #1 pick, and a lot expected out of him?
Well, I think this is a big year for him. I think the third year of any defensive lineman is going to be an important time. We feel like he's a player that hasn't really had the opportunity to show what he can do, and we feel solid with him. I think he's going to have a good year.
He will give Charles Haley some rest, and Charles Haley is back, although had some harsh comments criticizing the defensive coaches at the Pro Bowl. What was your reaction?
Well, you know, of course, I think everyone knows Charles. I think Charles is an outspoken guy, a guy that really says what's on his mind.
Did it offend you and the staff?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think it upsets anybody, but at the same time, whenever someone has an opinion on our team, we look at that. If he's got 5 points, maybe 4 of them are not that hot, but maybe 1 is good.
Did he make a good point in terms of improving?
He made some points that we felt that we needed to address. And,
can you tell us what?
Well, I'd rather not do that, but we're taking Charles into consideration and headed forward.
Just the two of us talking here, Dave, of course. All right, Deion Sanders, talk about him playing more offense, full-time football player. How much will that affect his defensive responsibilities, and do you make it clear, hey, defense first for Deion?
Well, I think Deion is a guy that can play both sides of the ball, and I think Deion has an opportunity to be an outstanding receiver as well. I think it will depend on how much he progresses in that area, but at the same time, we feel he's a corner and one of the best in the NFL, so I think that's important.
All right, well, good luck. Thanks for stopping by.
All right, Chris, my pleasure.
Appreciate it. One more pick for the Dallas Cowboys. Things are slowing down in the war room as we take a quick peek in there. You can see that Jerry Jones, well, he's like we are. We're ready to wrap things up. Let's go now to Chris Fowler at ESPN headquarters.
We certainly know how Jerry feels here back in the studio as Mike Lombardi and Mike Godfrey join me. You may have seen flashing along the bottom of your screen the 238th selection. Baltimore getting John Stark, the quarterback out of Trinity, the NAIA school in the Chicago area, a guy we talked about earlier. He started his career at Liberty, transferred down to Florida State, was narrowly beaten out by Danny Cannell after Charlie Ward moved on, and then went to the NAIA school. And you say that's a concern. You say you really, when you scout a player, look at a guy who dropped down in level of competition because of lack of playing time.
Well, Bill also always used to say, if they couldn't play for them, why do you think he's going to play for us? And I'm not saying that in criticizing John Stark, but I think it's something you need to look into. If he wasn't able to play at that level of caliber at Florida State for whatever reason, and I don't know what it was, you know, why do you think he's going to come in the National Football League and play for us? So I think you got to be tempered in terms of when a player transfers and really get involved in the information and understand why, in fact, he did transfer.
Yeah, because there are a million reasons why guys can transfer. Would you worry if psychologically the guy didn't believe he could step up to that level of competition? Would it be a concern mentally?
That's the stuff you got to find out. You really got to look into and see exactly why he left. You'll go on campus, they'll give you the standard, he wanted to play, but there's more to it than that. You really got to spend some time, dig into it, find out why he did. It's going to take some investigative work, and that's what we get paid to do.
Mike, you saw John Stark play when he was down at Florida State, and you know it was pretty close between him and Cannell, and Danny Cannell goes on to break records and get lots of pub on College Game Day from Lee Corso and the like, and Stark goes on and has a career in obscurity.
Well, it was a toss of the coin for who was going to be the starter down there, but I think you have to look at a lot of things when guys transfer, and I think you're going to see more and more transferring because guys want to play now. They don't want to wait. Let's take a look at John Stark. Got a strong arm, Mike, when I've had him out to Hula Bowl for 5-6 days of practice. Here he is in Trinity, moving, throwing the football, the curl route over the middle. He has an accuracy. He has poise in the pocket. Did a lot out of the shotgun with Trinity. There's a good throw over the middle. Florida State throw. He threw a lot of deep passes. Came into the ball game a lot of times late in the first quarter when they ran their second team on the field. And John Stark played a lot for Florida State.
Some guys transfer, go to small schools, get drafted anyway. Perry Klein, of course, went to CW Post after he left Cal, but he went in the 3rd round. John Stark, a lot more to prove now as he goes as a 7th-round pick. Let's go back now to New York as things wind down. Mike?
And Perry Klein still waits on the Atlanta Falcons roster as technically the 3rd quarterback for now. Bobby Hebert is the backup. Jeff George, the #1 quarterback. And to update that story real quickly, Jeff George's contract still a question. They offered 5 years at $25 million during the season. Then they come back, and according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, an offer of 3 years for about $10 or $11 million for Jeff George that did not make Jeff very happy in this past week. So that's a subject that is still has to be decided in terms of getting Jeff George back. And if you're thinking Jeff George is a free agent, remember, it'd be very tough for a team to find the cap room to sign a guy like Jeff George. Now, another quarterback